We're back with Bill Parisi to talk about state of the industry. And I invited Bill on this show for three reasons. Number one, he and I have been around the industry a long time. And so I want to really get his perspective on these numbers. Bill's also intimately involved with URSA, as it used to be called. And so he's seen data like this before. Second, Bill has particular expertise in the youth training and athletic training niche. And I really want to dig into that question and get his perspective on it. And third, he's just a brilliant guy. And so, overall, just before we even got on here, Bill was holding up his copy of State of the Industry with all the sticky notes and stuff, just like mine. And he brought up like 10 great questions that we're going to get to. But before we get into it, Bill, thank you so much for coming on Run a Profitable Gym again.
Chris, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so Bill is the founder of Parisi Speed Schools. He's got well over 100 schools across the states right now. He specializes in youth athletes. And Bill, if it's cool, that's where I'd love to start. The question that I had after looking at the data for state of the industry this year is the fastest growing segment in the coaching business anyway is the under 21 segment. And that's the first time I've seen it in 6 years. What's going on?
Youth athletics, youth sports, parents have become mad about their child playing sports and now with NIL and the opportunity to become a professional in high school. I mean, high school kids can get NIL deals, right? The opportunity to get paid for your likeness, and now in college to get paid, I think has changed the paradigm some. And obviously the top 2-3% are going to get paid. Most people are not going to get paid
Mhm.
when they go to college. But that concept and that opportunity and that excitement, I think, has really taken this to a whole new level recently. But even over the last number of years, when there wasn't NIL, parents are just passionate about their son and daughter's sports. They're just passionate. I mean, that's their success in sports is really important to them. And but they what's really most important to them is their kids' self-confidence and well-being. And we can unpack that more, but that, to me, that's a big driver is youth athletics.
Let's talk about NIL for a minute. Like, what exactly is it for the audience who doesn't know? And when did that come into play? Like, why is that influencing the numbers now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I know NIL is name, image, and likeness.
Okay.
And there was a court case that was brought against the NCAA by athletes that the NCAA was making all this money with image and likeness of these athletes. And, it got to a point where, they got sued and they won. The athletes won. They won that, you can't. I should have the right to make money off my name and my image, and the NCAA was doing that by broadcasting and whatnot. These athletes, and now athletes are able to get paid by businesses legally, whatever they contract to get paid. They just got to do the appropriate work, and it's got to be within reason, meaning that it's got to be fair market value. You know, and some of these guys are so big time. Paying a quarterback to at Michigan is $1 million is probably fair market value because you're on Michigan, you're on
Wow.
national TV. Yeah, your top quarterbacks in college now are now making seven figures. That's the kind of money
Wow.
that's being thrown to college athletes today. The average budget for a big time college football team for compensation is 20 million now. For the athletic department, football's about 13 million. But the numbers are astronomical, and I think it's flowing down. And I don't think that's the only driver. I think that's creating more excitement and more interest in parents to get their kids more training at a young age because when you're 7, 8, 9, 10, everyone has the dream, right? Everyone
Yeah.
has the dream to make the professional level. Well, now college is the professional level,
Yeah.
so now the dream in some ways is like even more applicable. I can say this, if you just make an FBS team and you're kind of in the top 40 players on that team, just making the team, I should say Power Four. If you make a Power Four team, which are the top four, and you just make the top 40, you're making a couple 100,000. You're not
Wow.
even you're not even starting. You're not even a
Wow.
starter. And if you're in the top, 30 to 40 on the team in Power Four, which is, about, I don't know, 70, 80 schools, you're making a few hundred thousand. That's the money that is being funneled now, in football and basketball as well. So, and it just makes the dream, I think, for parents even maybe a little bit more reality in a way, because now they don't have to make the NBA or NFL. Hey, if I make a high level college team, I can earn some life changing money for some families too.
Wow.
But that's one aspect. But before that, youth sports have always been really powerful, and the driver to that is really the self confidence and the camaraderie and the teamwork and the work ethic you build being on a sports team, and the benefits you get from that. So, I mean, I have two boys, right? They went through the system. They played high school sports. They are college athletes. My older son just graduated. He played Division III basketball. So he he benefited from this great team, that he was on through high school and through college. My younger son now is playing Division I football, a little bit different, a little more serious. Kids get paid, and he's benefiting in another way. But the money for them, I mean, that's not their driver. I mean, the driver for them is being a part of that team, being a part of that community, that family, that fraternity, and just developing those life skills. And when it's all said and done, that's the real value. And still, most parents still feel that's the real value that you get out
Mm.
of participating. I think the money has made it more sexy, more exciting, and for some, it's more motivating. And parents might be willing to spend a little bit more money now because they, might see an opportunity other than a scholarship. So I think that has helped. But the underlying foundation is really what sports are supposed to do, and really, it's sports are a metaphor for life, and you go through sports and you learn more from your defeats than your victories. You build resiliency. You build these behaviors that will help you succeed in life, and that's really what training helps us prepare to do.
Mm. When I talk to parents, and I've been coaching, youth athletes, not not only youth athletes, but they've been part of our mentorship, our coaching practice now for about 25 years. And when I say, like, why do you go in debt every year to get your kid on the traveling hockey team and go to all these tournaments and travel with them? And, sometimes if you got two kids, one's at one end of the country and the other's at the other end of the country to give a weekend, like, why do you do that? And the most frequent thing they've ever said to me is, we don't want to be the thing that holds the kid back. Like, we don't want our lack of investment to be the one thing that makes the difference for making it to the next level. And I always thought that was interesting. And, as a parent, I can kind of understand that. If your kid is passionate and they're good and there's a chance they could go to the next level, obviously I'm just going to do whatever I can to support them, regardless of what the payoff might be at the end. Right.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think.
Yeah, and I think, listen, parents, I think that's a big paradigm parents have. They
Yeah.
want to give the kid every opportunity
Yeah.
succeed, no doubt. And they also, listen, when your kid's involved on a team, and it's kind of like watching the Super Bowl and you have $10,000 bet on it. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm. Yeah. You're
very
invested.
exciting, it's very exciting to see your son or someone you're close with, compete,
Yeah.
you know, and I mean that's a special feeling to be able to have, and it's exciting for the kids, exciting for the parent. I mean, I do believe sometimes too many parents, live through their kids, and it's okay to get excited. Like, listen, I was a Division I All-American. I earned a full scholarship in college. Like, I had my thrill, right? I had
Wow.
my time, but I still get really excited when my kid's out there and competing and doing things. And I think parents, they want to give the kid every opportunity to do that. Obviously for the kid, for the athlete, but it's a lot of fun for the parent as well, you know, to see their kid succeed and just grow as a person.
Do you see a broader awareness in the industry, or maybe by parents, of my kid needs to be training, not just showing up and playing more? I can
Yeah,
remember when I started coaching hockey kids, a lot of their parents were like, don't tell anybody my kid comes here. This is like our secret weapon. And now it's like every kid knows at least that they should be working out.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, listen, the physical abilities of young athletes today have been elevated, right? I kind of
Yeah.
say high school is the new college in some ways. high school athletics is very competitive. It's become very competitive because of the amount of training and the development of our athletes that they're having at such a young age. And they're becoming more specialized and skills are increasing. So, I mean, when I first started training young athletes in 1991, the parents that used to send the kids to me, they were the oddball parents, like the crazy parents. You're sending your kid to what?
Yeah.
What's this thing? What training, speed training? What is that? You're like weird. Now, if you don't send them to a training, it's like you're depriving your kid. So it's
Yeah.
the paradigm has completely shifted where, now it's completely accepted that, if your kid is playing sports, getting them some type of training to enhance that because just going to your sport practice is not enough.
No.
Unless you're a genetic freak, and there are some of those, there's not many, but those are the guys that are making the pros. And if they get some training, those are the Hall of Famers, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it just keeps going, right? It just keeps going. So, but to be competitive, you have to be not only doing training, you have to be doing the right training. Because I've seen
Mm.
a lot of young athletes do the wrong training and end their careers, and it's really sad. I mean, just the wrong type of training, too much sagittal plane lifting, too much squatting and deadlifting with poor techniques where they just destroy their back and they're creating their own injuries. And that's really that's an epidemic right now. I believe there are so many faulty movement patterns that are being prescribed in the weight room and on the field in terms of quote unquote training, but we're really breaking down the athlete's connective tissue system, ligaments,
Yeah.
tendons, and doing in some ways doing more harm than good. So it's not only it's getting trained, but getting the right training, and that's where facilities can really stand out if they have a good foundation of movement.
I've always wanted to ask you this, and I'm sure we could do a whole podcast just on this, but how does training fit into the whole idea of early specialization? I hear all the time like, well, early specialization in one sport is terrible, but I go to a hockey game where 12-year-olds are playing better than 18-year-olds are playing 5 years ago, right? Of course it's more likely that they're going to burn out, and of course they're going to have overuse injuries and stuff, but like does training off the ice actually mitigate that, or is it still just a bad idea in general?
Yeah, I mean that thought process around early specialization, it really comes down to movement patterns, right?
Mm.
So if you do a movement pattern over and over again, whether it be a baseball throw or certain types of soccer kicks, that you're going to create these limitations or these overuse injuries. Now, that can be avoided with proper training, right? So the skill of the sport of whether it be, dribbling a soccer ball or swinging a baseball bat or shooting a basketball or whatever that skill may be, that early specialization is very valuable, like to learn those skills. Now, but when your body's doing specific movement patterns over and over again, the body kind of develops this kind of overdevelopment, for a lack of better words, in collagen, right? That kind of like has this specific path of this movement pattern. And now when you do something outside that movement pattern violently, I mean, there's a risk for injury. So it's really managing the collagen, the collagenous network of the body, the fascia, the tendons, the ligaments. It's managing that tissue in a way that it's omnidirectional and it's vibrant and it's springy and it's not you're trained in a way where it's one dimensional, right? It's got to be multi-dimensional. And when you do things over now, in some things, it's important to do things one dimensional, like a thrower, they throw a lot. Now, if they throw correctly and they build all the, stabilizer muscles, and they have good symmetry and they do other things than just throw, they're doing other, activities, you are going to develop this, believe it or not, this elastic Achilles tendon across your upper right pec if you're a right-handed thrower. That's been proven by science, where you won't have it on the left, but that's an adaptation that you need to be a high-level thrower. So
Right.
you need that, but you also need to have these other things to balance. So it's important to know that early specialization, there's value to it, but done incorrectly, yeah, it could lead to challenges. So, have you ever heard of a wrestler get injured or have overuse injuries from wrestling?
Oh,
No.
never.
You never
No.
hear a wrestler. Why? Because wrestling is omnidirectional. Forces are going through the body, through the tissues in all different directions all the time.
Yeah.
So that's a sport you don't have to really worry about early specialization because that's exactly what we're talking about. Everybody should wrestle to create muscle symmetry and balance because you're using all these muscles in all these different positions, right?
Very
But if the
cool.
sport requires a skill that's very specific, now you got to build a program that builds balance and symmetry and that's omnidirectional. So, like basketball players, they you don't really hear much about basketball player overuse injuries.
Yeah.
Why? Kids that play basketball early on and all they do is play basketball, that's why they're the most freakish athletes on the planet because their entire activity is multi-directional, omnidirectional, doing all types of changes of direction and jumping and all type of angles and whatnot. You don't hear about overuse in basketball. Maybe you get
Yeah.
overuse patella tendonitis or because just too much activity no matter what it is, right?
Yeah.
So that's a misnomer because it's funny when you hear somebody like Steph Curry say, "Oh, you should play all three sports." Yeah, I recommend play three sports if you're a stud and you can play all three sports and actually play, get on the field. But if you're going to
Right.
play three sports nowadays, you're going to play three sports at a competitive high school. Well, typically Steph Curry's a stud, like he's an NBA champion, right? Most kids aren't that. So to play three sports, I don't want to play a sport and sit on a bench,
Right.
and like just go and like not get a lot of practice time and not get a lot of game time. I'd rather be training for the one sport where I can get playing time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's about at the end of the day, it's not about playing three sports. It's about playing time. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, can I want to play a
Mm.
sport? I want to play a sport to play, right?
Yeah.
Not play a sport just to play three sports. So, what high school are you going to? How competitive is it? What's your chances? Who's in your position as above your grade, below your grade, in your grade? What's your chances of starting or being the second string or not seeing time?
Right. Yeah.
These are
Okay.
all vital questions parents need to look at and ask when we decide or they decide what their kid wants. I don't know any kid that is excited to go out for a sport and not play. Like the goal is to play. Now most
Yeah.
kids, here's the thing, most kids, a lot of kids don't play. Not many kids are happy with their playing time. I mean,
Yeah.
how many kids when the season's over and say, "Oh man, everything about every game was great. I played as much as I could, and I maxed it out." Like that's like 2%,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Very rare. Yeah. Yeah.
More than 50% of the kids, they end the season, they're not happy with playing time, they're not happy with their end result.
Right.
So it was more of in some ways, it was more of a drain in some ways than a positive because playing time and making plays is what we want. That doesn't happen to the majority of the kids. Getting a lot of playing time and making plays, you got to prepare for that. So I mean, but there's other wins from the experience, right? Like,
Sure.
by competing and whatnot. And again, I'm a parent. I got kids. I had kids that went to very competitive high schools. My son, they went to Don Bosco High School, right? Number one high school, one top high school in the U.S. Ranked nationally, basketball, football, top 100 year after year. He worked his butt off freshman year, sophomore year. He was a basketball player. Junior year, got some time. I mean, he really didn't start. Senior year, gets his starting lineup job. He made the starting lineup at Don Bosco. Halfway through the
Wow.
season, he lost his starting job halfway through the season. He lost his starting job to Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper was a freshman on that
Wow.
team that grew 2 inches during the season, went from like,
Wow.
6 foot to 6'2". But the point I'm trying to say is that he still had a great experience and he still got a lot out of sport, even though like ultimately he didn't have
Yep.
that starting position.
You know what I love about talking to you, Bill, is like you will not meet a true expert in any field who is not extremely passionate about that field. And it comes across in everything that you say, your passion. And it's a big part of what makes you such an expert. We could do an entire podcast on that and it would fly by and neither of us would even notice. What I'd love to do is kind of pivot to some of these business numbers. And
Yes.
I'm going to ask how they compare to the athletic training community, the youth training community. Are they high? Are they low? What do you think?
Well,
So
oh, go ahead.
no, so let's start with 129 clients. Like
Yeah.
if you were looking at a Parisi Speed School or an athletic training facility, is that number high or low?
I would say that's interesting. That's probably like the threshold of right where we,
That's where you want to
where
be.
where we want to be, or at the beginning of where we
Hmm.
want to be. Like we want to
Okay.
be, north of we want to be in that 100 range, for
Oh,
sure.
okay.
And now you got to understand, first of all, I want to say this book is gold, right? I made all my
Thank you.
notes. I mean, there's so many pearls of wisdom in here, and this is such a great blueprint for gym owners to have a measuring stick. Like I said before, without this, it's like going into a basketball gym with a blindfold on and trying to shoot baskets, right? I mean, you gotta take the blindfold off and see where the goal is, like see where you need to be. We all need motivation, right? That's the number one lacking, trait in our society, right? That's the behavior. That's the number one lacking behavior is that motivation. And this is a book of motivation of where we should be. Because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right? And
Yeah.
this is amazing. So that 129 number, I think, is a great benchmark that you laid out based on the research to make 100 grand a year. That's what you need to get to. I mean, that's a great number, like the 100 grand and make 100K as an owner, 129 locked in. And if you follow the rest of this blueprint, this playbook of where you need to be, having these goals and getting your team dialed into these goals, you're going to get to that next level. So there's so many pearls in here, and that's the first one that I earmarked, right? Like as a number. And in terms of Parisi Speed School, the fact that we're really only a business that operates about 4 hours a day,
Yeah.
typically, I mean, we're only operating, 4 to 5 hours a day from, 3:30 or so, 3 o'clock to like 7 or 8, in that range. We average probably 15 to 20,000 a month in a typical program on average, and I would say that's, probably our median. And then, we've got our outliers, but, I mean, if you're not doing at least 20, we don't consider you successful, and that's just in youth,
Right.
that's just in that 4 hour to 5 hour window. And that doesn't mean someone that's doing, 5 grand a month, 10 grand a month as an add-on. I mean, that could be claimed successful as well. But
Of course. Yeah.
yeah, and those numbers, like those memberships range for us with those smaller numbers, the smaller, it's like, more like 30, 40, 50 members. But for us, we know at roughly, 100 members, we're charging at least 200 a month,
Yep.
for our program. So we know that 100 mark is 20 grand a month. That's that benchmark.
Some people will hear you say we're charging 200 a month and think, wow, I that's great. I guess I see how you can charge that for youth. I could never charge that in my CrossFit gym, boot camp. But the reality is, if you flip to the average, like the median average revenue per member, ARM, it's like 205. It's up there anyway. It's not, it might be just under 200 now. It's going up every year. And
Yeah.
the gyms that are doing it are not necessarily just selling group training. They've got a group training program for adults, and they've got a Parisi Speed School for youth, or they've got a personal training option in there or something like that. Like, and they're building toward that ARM. The cool thing about Parisi is the prices are prescribed for you, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't dictate them, but you tell people what they should charge.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's great, man. The next thing I wanted to ask about was the four funnels. So, over the last few years, we've been trying really hard to like boil marketing down into something really actionable, like a checklist.
Yep.
And now we break it down into four funnels, and we break this out in the State of the Industry Guide. What I wanted to ask you about is like, how are youth training and athletic training GMs utilizing the four funnels? Are they doing well at it? Or are they doing something different? What's happening there?
Yeah. I think we're doing well, and we are using those four funnels, and the way you laid them out, I mean, it's just genius in terms of the model of social media, referrals, general marketing initiatives. I mean, looking at those four areas and honing on them is huge. And I think, my paradigm changed a little bit here too.
Hmm.
Looking at your data, and you've helped me a lot because when I've grown, like a lot of our business, has been referral. Like I've been doing this 35 years and
Yeah.
before social media came out and whatnot, and we've been, 70, 80% referral because we give such a great service. And obviously that's evolving and that's changing, and social is playing such a huge role in that. And the fact that you have a plan for that and you laid it to these four funnels, because in my mind it was mainly like it was all referral driven for us for the most part. And we would
Yeah.
do some advertising, we would spend some money in some newspapers and things of that nature. But as this social media came about and has really changed the game, we started to look at that and say, wow, this is definitely changing the game. And that whole process of what you do and how you do on social is now a game changer, because that's opening up new pockets, like you said in your program, that if you don't if you're not looking at these four funnels and you're not measuring them on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, you're missing the boat. Like you're missing lead opportunities. So I think we need to put more emphasis, though, on that referral side of the house, because I don't think we know how to ask for referrals, or we know how to really drive referrals the way we really could. And that is the best type of business you can get is
Yeah.
referrals.
Yeah. How do you teach Parisi Speed Schools to go out and get referrals? A lot of gyms that I talk to, I say, "Do you have a referral program?" Yes, we do. And what they actually have is like a discount program that nobody talks about. They don't they don't push it. They're very passive, and it's just kind of like a hope and pray program. We teach gym owners to be active about referrals, but what I'm interested in is always like, what is the best way to get more referrals in youth sport?
Yeah. I mean, the easiest one that's worked for us is, bring a friend.
Yeah,
Bring a friend in for a session, anytime. And we also run challenges. So,
fun.
we call them challenges, and they come in. It's like a combine event, and it's an open events where kids come in. They test out. They see how fast and how explosive they are, and they get their combine score. So we use those two ways. A free demo class, bring a friend, and then we run these challenges either every month or every quarter. And the kids come in, they test. It's like a little mini decathlon kind of competition
Wow.
where kids really get excited about it, and we promote that, and we'll put that out there for kids to, and parents to take advantage of. And it's a fun day. It's a fun event. So that's how we kind of, excite the community and get people, you know, wanting to bring a friend in and, compete against their friend and have some fun. So you got to make it fun,
Yeah.
and I think from an adult community, you can do things very similar. You can, have challenges. You have these different challenges, and you can have different handicaps. I mean, we position our younger athletes, they get a different scoring system than our older athletes. And it's really not about competing against somebody else, but you're really competing against yourself, right? So you get your baseline score on your first challenge. And then the goal is, let me come back and where am I gonna, how am I gonna improve? And then can I see my improvement by coming back? And that measurement, that excitement to want to improve the athleticism, and I think with all the gyms that you coach, people are looking to do that. They want to see that improvement, measuring the outcomes. And have these different, competitions and whatnot. But I think there's ways to make that easier. I think the toll that sometimes some of these people put on their body and the adult community doing the different types of workouts, I think there's different ways. I mean, you can come up with your own facility challenge, your own
Yeah.
4 or 5 different, protocols, and have your own community kind of event with your members. And I think those could be really powerful.
Yeah, there are thousands and thousands of gyms who are running a High Rocks program,
Right.
for this exact reason for adults, and it's super powerful. A gym could put together their own, physical challenge and offer that as a kind of adult combine, too. When
That's
you're,
exactly right.
but you give the actual combine layout and scorecard and everything to all the Parisi affiliates, right?
Yeah, yeah, we have it all laid out. We have a
That's
whole
awesome.
scoring system. It's all computerized in terms of, just tallying the scores. And we have point totals that go from 0 points up to 800 points. And it's kind
Wow.
of like a decathlete
So
that,
cool.
it's acceleration ability, 10-yard sprint, 20-yard sprint, vertical jump, standing broad jumps, an agility test, pull-up test. So it's these six different tests that we measure, and they all have a composite score, and it's fun. I mean, people love doing them, and I think a lot of adults would probably love doing those as well because it's real physical activity that you need to be athletic to do well in, you know?
You know what's funny is when I was a kid, we had this program in every school in Canada called the Canada Fitness Test, and every kid would have to do it. And the one that everybody hated the most was called the flexed arm hang, and it was like this chin up, and you had to hold yourself above the bar, and you didn't have to pull yourself up. Like the teacher could boost you up there, and then you had to hold it. And it's even like it's in like Canadian music. People sing about this stuff. When a few years ago we held the Canada Fitness Test redo for adults 30 years later for most of us, the gym was packed. Like they couldn't get over like doing these tests again that they had done in the third grade. And some of them even wore their old 30-year-old Canada Fitness Test medals. So,
Wow.
like people love this stuff. The other thing that I really wanted to ask you about, because I do believe, in referrals with kids, my practice as a personal trainer grew from 0 to 12 almost overnight because of getting referrals with youth athletes. I really wanted to ask you about social media. I mean, if anybody follows you on Instagram, for example, they'll notice like the quality of your storytelling and content and video has just gone through the roof in the last 3 or 4 months, I would say. Bill, like what's going on there?
My oldest son graduated college with a degree in marketing communications
And when did he take over?
about 3, 4 months ago.
Okay, well, okay. I wasn't just imagining things.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
that's
yeah.
great.
No, I mean he has really shoved the camera in my face. He says, "Hey, Dad, listen, I'm 58, right? So I didn't grow up with social media, right?
Yeah,
I'm an old cat." But yeah, I mean, listen, the takeaway is this. Believe it or not, I'm not like a big social media guy but what I've realized is that you got to be part of it. You got to be in the game. And if you're not good at it or if it's not something you like to do, you better find someone that
yeah.
you can bring on board to do it for you and help you and guide you through it. So he's been the one that has been getting the camera in front of me and filming, and then we talk and collaborate on what we want to say, what I want to put out there, and we put it out. And it's just being consistent and it's kind of like I'm doing what I do, but now there's a camera there. It's a
Yeah.
lot of things I'm coaching, I'm training my athletes, I'm doing an education for coaches, and it's just now, okay, we got a camera filming it. So it's really just finding someone that's gonna, film those exciting moments. And then when you have an idea or a concept you want to share, put it up there, get a camera. We bought a nice camera. We got a couple, tripods that can hold the camera, and we're just knocking it out. And it's kind of fun. And we are building a nice library.
Well, I think what you guys do best is something that I've heard from Dan Martell before, which is capture, don't create. And you're definitely not staging things. You're not standing in front of the camera and saying, "Hi, I'm Bill Parisi, and
Yeah.
today's tip is," like it's an action shot of you actually coaching, and it's incredible. I really encourage anybody to check out at Parisi Speed Schools on Instagram. Just follow them, and you'll see so much good content there. I really wanted to talk to you about retention too, because while retention in athletic training and youth sports is naturally higher than for adults, you also run, sometimes it's kind of a seasonal business, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. We have peaks and valleys in our business. We have two peaks and two valleys. And youth, and what's nice, adults really counter that program
Mm,
really well. I mean, it's funny. I opened my gym, my first gym. It was a studio, 3,000 square feet in 1993, right?
amazing.
1993. I ran youth athletic training in that gym, and I ran adult training in that gym. And in 1997, and Tom Plummer and all these people will validate this. In 1997, we did 987,000 in that space. 987. And
Amazing.
yeah, in 1997, it was just I had like 12 full-time coaches. I mean, and the average
Wow.
one-on-one price back then was like $35.
Yeah,
The average
exactly. Yeah.
one was $35. And now, I mean, I think
Wow.
I've been doing small groups at like $20. We were just busy day and night, like from the morning, afternoon, and then at night, kids. It was just completely screaming. The point is that youth business, that retention and what we did, that drove the adults. So in youth, our downtime in youth is April and May. That's a big valley when sports start.
Okay.
There's a big valley. But adults get jacked up. The summer's coming. So it's a peak for the adult,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
We know January, February, that's a peak for everybody across the board.
Yep.
January, February, March, everybody's through the roof. Our biggest, the first quarter is just a monster quarter for us because we have all the athletes, all the adults. It's crazy. The next valley, then we have for the youth, the valley is the April, May. Then the peak for us is summer. We get really busy June, July, and the first couple of weeks of August. It's a big peak for athletes getting ready for fall sports,
Yeah.
right? And then adults tend to maybe slide off a little bit in the summer. And then another valley for us is when fall sports start. September, October, we the athlete training goes down some, but adults get really jacked up because kids are back in school, parents get back on a schedule, so they really
Wow.
have counterbalanced one another very, very nicely. And that same facility that I have operated since 1992, believe it or not, it's the same facility, still going today, doing 900,000. I mean,
Wow.
same, it's a little bit bigger, about 4,000 square, but I don't know how many gyms have worked the test of time. And it's another owner, by the way, owns and operates it, and it's in my hometown here. It's right local, but it's trugging away at just cranking out 900 grand a year, and it's just cranking away for 30 plus years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's unprecedented and unmatched. And I wanted to ask you about retention. Like, obviously, you cannot build that 30, 40-year gym without amazing retention. How do you keep the kids coming back year after year or, in the off seasons
Yeah.
without just like churning them out and churning new ones back in?
When you think about our product, right? Our product are our coaches. It's
Yeah.
all about nurturing and developing your coaches. It's knowing how to recruit, knowing how to hire, train, develop, and retain. It's all that. And
Mm.
that's why we put so much effort into recruiting, hiring, training, and retaining. I mean, if you do that and you do a lot of other things wrong, I mean, you're still gonna you're still gonna be successful. Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, for the most part, you got to have a good lease, and you got to have obviously the proper pricing strategies and all. But the secret to our success has always been hiring and retaining quality coaches. We do that by providing them career paths and really sound education to develop them as great coaches. So if their goal is to go and be a college coach or go and grow into another facility or open up their own, whatever it may be, we want to be aligned with them and help them get to their goals and provide everything we can for them to succeed in this industry. And that's resources, that's education, that's career path, that's just, mentoring them and getting them to understand the business. So that's your product. I mean, you
Mm.
owners, the owners need to understand like a lot of their focus needs to go in developing and mentoring coaches. And it's not just some guy I'm going to pay part-time. He's going to show up. Hey man, do we take them to lunch once a month? Do we have soft meetings? Do we get to know them personally? What's going on in their life? Do we have our hard meetings? Do we have a detailed job description for these people? And do we hold them accountable? Do we set
Yeah.
clear expectations to our people? And do they understand the expectations, what's expected of them? And are you holding them accountable? I mean, these are things that most managers or owners are not doing on a consistent basis because they just get pulled in other directions, and that's where things slip.
I wanted to get your take on that a little bit deeper because you're a great leader, Bill. And one of the things that owners get nervous about or shy away from even is doing like evaluations on their staff or writing out a clear job description or even holding people accountable. But in my experience, that actually the staff wants to hear that most of the time. What's your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the owners that have challenges with that because they're too nice,
Yeah.
or they get their priorities are not, maybe in order. They're either too nice or their priorities are not in order. And I think you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I mean, that's the most important thing. Honesty is not always positive. We have three core values at the Parisi Speed School. They're really simple. It's honest, positive, and excellence. Honesty in relationships, positive in attitude, excellence in service. That's our core values. We've been living
Wow.
by them for 30 years. It's very simple. It's 9 words, right? 9 words. That's our values. And our values lead to our mission and our mission statement, right? So, but just to unpack the values here for a second,
Yeah.
and this is what we live by, right? So I asked owners out there, what are your facility's core values? What's your facility's mission statement? What's your mission, right? So at the Parisi Pizza, our mission, we believe we're the industry leader in performance enhancement for young athletes, that we improve not only the speed of movement, but the strength of character in any athlete, regardless of their ability, economic status, or event or background. We're going to help these kids. Like that's our mission, right? To empower the youth of the world now. It used to be empower America's youth. Now it's empower the youth of the world because we're all over the world. So, but our values are the underlying foundation to our mission, right?
Mhm.
So, going back to values, honesty in relationships, positive in attitude, excellent service. Well, honesty is not always positive. So
Yeah.
like there's a paradox there, right, in a way, because honesty is not always positive, and understanding that dealing with this head on with a challenge that is being honest, it might be negative or perceived negative, but we have to have those conversations. And it comes down to accountability and holding people accountable. But where that gets screwed up is where, people aren't clear on expectations. So when you write down the job description, you go over it line by line by line, and then you hold people accountable. And when there's a challenge, then you have to document that issue, and make sure they understand they made a mistake and there's repercussions if you do it again. And there's got to be a process to that. And eventually, you gotta have to fire people, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and people are way too quick to hire and way too slow to fire. You got to hire slow, fire fast. And these are just business 101 principles, a lot easier said than done in terms of, having the courage to follow through with these things because, this coach, everybody loves him, but he's always late. He's always, he
Yeah.
eats his lunch on the floor. It's not fair. All these different things, right? So, but, you just can't have that. And, listen, I've dealt that with my whole career, but now we hire a lot better. We
Yeah.
understand and we feel when these things are starting to brew up, where a coach maybe his ego's getting a little bit too big. We got to have a meeting and then we got to decide, hey, I get it. Maybe it's not what you thought it was, or it's not working out. Let's figure out an exit plan. Let's
Yeah.
let's let's understand if you're not, it's okay. Let's figure it out and then move on that. I just think, it hurts hard in the beginning when you got to like move on from someone, but it's a lot more painful if you let it drag around, for a while. So I think the big thing is really understanding the psyche of your coaches, having, core values and understanding and sharing core values with your team, and, having a mission, like a real mission, like your local mission. What is your mission? My organization started out when I had a couple locations with our core values and our mission statement. Now it's a big network. So yeah, it's a lot there.
Well, yeah, it is a lot, and we could do a podcast on this too, Bill. Like you've got so much experience and wisdom here. Do you find that this degree of honesty, clarity, does it separate your best staff from your weakest staff? Here's why I ask. When I did my first coaching internship, it was like 1996. And I felt like I was the best coach that was recruited as an intern among the three of us who were. And at the end of the semester, I worked really hard in that job. I was, down in Illinois sweating, but, a pale Canadian kid. At the end of the summer, I got an A and I was really proud of it until I found out that everybody got an A, including the people that I thought were really phoning it in, not trying hard, etc. And later on, a mentor said to me, Chris, like your best players don't want to work with your worst players. And that's another reason to get the worst players out. Back to the question, do you think that doing these evaluations, giving people this much clarity, does it weed out the bad ones and strengthen the relationship with the good ones, or does it do something different?
I think it all depends on the individual.
Okay.
I think it can make, sometimes it can make the bad ones the good ones.
Oh, wow. Okay. Tell me about that.
I think sometimes you know, we've turned house painters and bank tellers into world-class coaches.
I love it. That's such
World,
a great quote. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
we really have. Where I've turned UPS workers, we have a guy, his name is Rich Sadiv. He came to us in 2009. He was at UPS for over 25 years. Brought his daughter in to work with us. Brought his daughter in. She was a high school softball player, and he was a power lifter. Like that was
Yeah.
his, he's a power lifter. And he started working out, at our facility. And then he was good in the weight room. And we said, hey, you want to get involved with us? We'll train you. And you start working with some athletes. He started working with our jumpstart athletes, believe it or not, our 7, 8, 9 year olds. Started working with our jumpstart athletes. What he had and what he has to this day, and what the house painter has and the bank teller has, they love to motivate people.
Nice.
They're passionate about empowering other people. They're passionate about making an impact. They're not they're not only passionate about the content, they're not just passionate about training and lifting and exercise. They're passionate about people. Find me somebody passionate about people. I don't care what you do. I don't really, as long as you're fit and you work out and you like working out, I'm going to make you a great coach.
Yeah,
And
that's
those are my
amazing.
best coaches. Long story short, this guy wind up not only quitting UPS a few years later, he wound up ascending to not only be our manager of our facility, he purchased our flagship facility in 2015
Amazing.
and then just sold that facility for 7 figures.
Amazing.
That is amazing. A UPS worker
Yeah.
that liked to power lift. So I have a lot of those stories where, they start out as coaches, just coaches and mentoring them, but they got to have that underlying value to want to really inspire people. If you're a coach or if you want to be a coach and all it's about you and you want everybody to be super motivated like you, and if they're not motivated like you don't want to coach them, it's going to be hard to be successful in this industry. You know,
It is, but I think that the real leaders in the industry create opportunities like this that allow people who are UPS drivers who love powerlifting to have an opportunity where they wouldn't have otherwise. So thanks for doing that. Like you're revealing this hidden coach who was buried in UPS brown and Metallica t-shirts. Like
yeah, or a waiter or waitress or so you
yeah,
always
yeah,
got to be. If here's a little nugget, you always got to keep your slate filled, no matter where you go. I remember I found the coach. I was at a sporting goods store called Dick's Sporting Goods, big here in
yeah.
the U.S. And my kids were young at the time, really young, like 7, 8 years old. It's like 20 years ago or 15, 18 years ago. And they're playing with the basketballs. They're going crazy. I'm like, calm down, like guys, we're in a store. You can't be shooting baskets in the store. It's not me. So this worker came by and he's like engaging with my kids, and I'm like, wow, this kid is special. And here's the magic words I use all the time. Man, when I see somebody like that, just remember this sentence. Everyone listening, this is a game changer. This will change your life. Change your net worth. Here's the words. You're really good at what you do. Do you keep your career options open? That's all you need to say. Say that a few times a day. Hopefully you can say it a couple times a week to wherever you go. Somebody that
Wow.
looks fit, somebody that looks good, somebody that has looks like they work out, but they're really good at something. Like, and my bank teller, this house painter that I was blown away with.
Yes.
UPS worker, man, those are the magic words. Man, you're really good at what you do. Do you keep your
Wow.
career options open? Now, I'm working at a bank. I'm painting houses. I'm working at UPS. What do you think they're going to say? No. I love what I do. I don't want to do anything else. They say, yeah, why? Well, you know what? I own a gym. I work at a gym. We have a great program. We empower kids, empower adults to get fit, change their lives. Would you be interested to learn more? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I usually get a confused look. I usually get like a look up to the
What?
side, or down to
Yeah,
the side. It's usually a confused look.
that's
But
amazing.
yeah, but then you got to now bring them in, train them, and so that takes. I mean, that's what we do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we have a whole training system, and we bring them in, we build them up. But that's what I look for. I will say this: not I'm big in education, huge.
Yeah.
Not against having degrees. I like people with degrees, but a lot of times, 4-year degree, they got a master's degree. They think, all right, I got this degree, I should get this, I should do this. No, I would
Yeah.
rather. I would rather take that house painter that is thanking me every day for the opportunity than someone coming into my building thinking I owe them because they have this advanced degree.
You know, it, I never made this connection before, but when I was a new trainer, 98, I was talking to a college professor and said, I think I need to go get my master's. It's the only way I'm ever going to make a career at this. And he said, "What? How is a master's going to make you more money? When you can tell me that, go get your master's." And right at that time, a coworker gave me a copy of How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I started practicing that. And that's actually what made me a career. It was is the ability to connect. And Bill, like you're an amazing connector. If anybody's ever been around you, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to introduce them to somebody else in your network and you're going to make them feel special. Is that innate? Were you born with that, or is that something that you have to cultivate?
It's funny you said that. I was in college in the recovery room in a cold tub at 19 years old, and I was reading this
Wow.
book. I was reading this book, and my friend looked at the title, and he looked at me, and he walked out, and he said, he was like, "Loser," like calling me a loser. I'm reading this book. And the title of the book. We're in college.
Yeah.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Amazing.
19 years old. So
Wow.
I think you said that book, that was one of the first personal development books I read.
Yeah.
It was the foundation to my, all my books. And then I would say the other one, just throwing out books, like that's a must. And the five dysfunctions of a team has
Oh,
really laid the foundation on building a culture in an organization. I mean,
wow.
I actually, I don't know if you know this, I'm such a connector that at URSA, the big trade
Yeah.
organization, I negotiated and facilitated to have Patrick Lencioni speak at URSA.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
cool.
I mean, I cut the deal. Like,
Wow.
like his compensation was like a lot of money. It was like
Yeah.
30K, you know.
Yeah.
But like that's the kind of connector I am because I was so into the book. I went and met him. I reached out to him. I just attacked. And I said the industry needs this so much. I had him speak. They have this big trade shows. It's for the big box,
Yeah. Yeah.
that type of thing.
So a lot of staff, but very, very valuable stuff from Lencioni, I'm
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, I think maybe this is one of the biggest takeaways. And there's a lot of like quotable quotes from Bill Parisi on this podcast already. But one of the biggest takeaways is the people who are good connectors, even if they aren't born with that skill and they have to cultivate it, they are very rarely unsuccessful in the service industry. Now, they might not love their job. They might be at a waiter level, but they're probably really good at it. They might be a personal trainer who's not making enough money yet, but they will probably not lose their clients and they just have to fix the money problem. And what you're talking about here over and over is, well, you have to connect, and here's how you connect, and here's how you connect with the clients, and here's how you connect with your staff. And one of the greatest, I think, praises that I've heard from the Parisi seminars is like you actually learn how to connect to people better, and that's a very transferable skill, no matter what kind of gym you have.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I gave a talk. I speak on the Perform Better circuit, and Chris Poirier, who started that, he's the CEO of Perform Better. I gave this talk back in 2009. He said, and to this day, he said it was the best lecture on Perform Better history,
Wow.
and it was my networking talk. It's how to,
Wow. So
and the
cool.
title was "Grow Your Network to Grow Your Net Worth."
Yep.
And
Love it.
and he said, and I went and did it this year, 2025. I did it again. He said, "Bill, you got to bring back that talk." So you're so dead on. And the power of networking and engaging and how to win friends and influence people is the foundational skills I learned through that book on how to ask questions and how to listen. Like these things are invaluable skills that are you have to own how to listen. Listening is a skill, right? I mean, it's something that you have to practice, and most people don't do that because when you connect with people and you talk about empowering your employees or finding the right people, because that's everything. It's all about finding the right people and then empowering those people. You have to learn how to be a good listener and really understand their goals, not just their business goals, but their life goals and where they want to be, and really connect with them and engage with them and help them succeed in life. And then you really become a family. Like you really, like we say that at the Parisi Speed School, like we're a family, our network. We mean that. It's not, I'm
Yeah.
Italian. I mean, we have the family thing going. But I really want to help people succeed, even people that say I want to do my own place, or that's fine. Like just be honest with us. That's our core value. And listen, we won't have any problem you doing your own thing. Just if you're going to do it, just be transparent about what you want to do, when you want to do it, where you want to do it, and hopefully it aligns with us. And if it doesn't, that's okay. Then we can move in different directions. So, but it's really about mastering those skills, listening and asking questions. I've hired a guy 20 years ago. His name is Dr. Paul Staples. I hired him as a consultant. He has his
Mhm.
PhD in educational psychology. And one of the biggest things he's taught me and what makes him a great consultants don't always have the answers, but they know what questions to ask, you know?
To get the answers out of you.
They get the answers. And this, like I will say, man, I like this book, this state of the industry thing that you guys put together. I am really blown away with what you created here in terms
Thank you.
of all the nuggets. And there are so many people that get into this industry with passion, and you get into the right reasons and all the things I just said
Yeah.
about you want to help people and you want to empower and you love fitness. But guys, if you don't have the blueprint, if you don't have the numbers, if you don't have the mentorship, it's really hard. I've been very successful. I've had mentors my entire career, just like Chris. Now, Chris is one of my mentors, right? I mean, I've had guys, real industry legends, like people like over the years, like Mark Mastroff, guys that founded 24 Hour, guys that became billionaires, right?
Yeah.
In industry, like billionaires that I've have connections to and been mentored by. And I was able to grab all these nuggets from all these different people. You got to have that mentorship. And I will say to this, Chris, I've been around a long time. I've been, dealing with consultants my entire career. What you've built at Two Brains, we have a bunch of facilities at using your services. And there's a lot of mentorships out there now. There's a lot. And people, just because they open up one gym and they're making 70,000 a month, and now all of a sudden they're a guru, and that's great. I'm not saying, but the reality of is what you've done for thousands of gyms, the data you're producing, this is real. This is not some slick marketing strategy that you have. Because I looked under the covers, and I have over 100 facilities, and we have facilities that have different mentors, right? We have a bunch now coming over to you. We have some leaving, others coming to you, because
Thanks.
no, because of what you've put together, and the structure you have, and the discipleship you've built, right? You're building a discipleship with your mentor network. And that is powerful, man. It's not just one guy trying to do it all. You've trained disciples, and that's the lesson, and these disciples are doing massive numbers. And guess what? They're fired up to help everyone else out there. So,
Thank
I
you.
mean, no, I say it from the bottom of my heart because it's real. I like talking about real stuff. There are a lot of phonies in this industry, in everything, in every industry, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, you know, just maybe are perceived to be a lot more successful than they are, and that's all good. I mean, that's all. I don't care about that. But the reality of it is, when I find someone that I know has the goods, like they have the steak, not just the sizzle, I mean, I get excited. No, I do. I get
Thank you.
excited. The people, whether it be in business consulting like yourself, or people in performance training, like an Eric Cressy, or just,
Yeah.
guys that are at the highest of their field. So
Thank you.
that's why I like to roll with, and then how do we come together and help the mass? I've done a bunch of different courses with Eric Cressy. We've collaborated on doing educational courses together. So finding the best, and figuring out how to help the masses. And that's what we're doing, right? I mean, we're
Yeah.
coming together and working together to see how do we help more gyms succeed, by maxing out these numbers and looking at these numbers and see where you fall and tracking these numbers and getting mentorship. And then maybe adding youth to your program if you have the space and if it makes sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm
Well,
coming from.
thanks, Bill. I really appreciate that. And we're gonna end on that. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of takeaways to this episode. We're gonna break them down over our social and email the next few days. But Bill, thanks so much for being part of this. Thanks for being, in the industry. It's you that really gives me hope that the great people are still part of this industry. And if we just stay focused on them, we can block out all the other stuff. So thanks for that, man.
Yeah. My pleasure, Chris. Thanks for having me.